Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, so in this video, I'd like to follow up on the Buffy St. Marie matter. Okay, so now in the last video, I was openly supportive of Buffy St. Marie. Okay, I think, I understand, I fully understand that she is not an Indian. Okay, that she's not actually a blood native. Okay, but she presents herself that way, and she has presented herself as not being just adopted by Indians. She has presented herself as actually being an Indian. Okay. And the question is, is that all right? And I basically tried to argue that, people should be able to present themselves however they want to. That I don't, I think we ought to have room in the world for kind of eccentric people, even people who are just plain dishonest. Um, that's just part of the color of the world, and even just the absurdity of it is also part of the color of the world. And I think there should be room to allow people to be just absurd. And just like, well, and just as we accept people who are, like, say, transsexual. Okay, and transsexual can mean different things. Transsexual can mean actually presenting yourself as a woman as though you really were a woman. Okay, through an actual transformation where you actually become a woman, right? Another way to be transsexual is like to be like drag, like to be like a transvestite, where, or just in drag, where you're actually a man, but you just wear the costume of a woman. You present yourself in the costume of being a woman. So that's like drag versus, pure trans, 100% transsexual. And I just think, I guess my attitude is that people should be allowed to be as free as possible, just to take on whatever identity, whether it's just as a costume or whether it's actual, an actual, like, biological surgical transformation, whatever. I just think that's part of the color of life. I think that's part of the rainbow of just everything from just the normal to the eccentric, to the insane, to the outrageous, and even to the ridiculous. I just think that's, to me, that's just part of the color of the world. And even if it is purely dishonest, you have to still look at, what is the actual intent of the person. Okay, now clearly the problem with Buffy St. Marie is clearly she had the intent to sort of basically fake herself as an Indian, although I will leave some doubt that because of her appearance. Okay, and I know that she's Italian American, I understand that, but I do think there's something kind of unusual about her appearance. Okay, even the pictures I've seen from before her assumption of the Indian identity. All right, I think there is something about her appearance that, may have justified her to feel very uncomfortable with her identity. Okay, and she may have entertained a kind of a fantasy, just wondering if maybe her mother maybe had sex with another man to produce her, and maybe that gave her, Indian bloodline, or whether maybe she had been adopted. One of the two. I think, I can't really fault her for having maybe some fantasy as a way of dealing with maybe the discomfort of having maybe kind of, let's just say, kind of a strange appearance. Okay, her physical appearance is kind of strange. So I'm not going to hold it against her that she went into fantasy as a way of sort of dealing with the way she looked. Okay, and I also can't fault her for maybe falling in love with an Indian tribe and maybe just wanting desperately to be an Indian. Okay, and I just personally think there should be room in the world for people to even do things that are not authentic, that are not necessarily factually true. Like, we could just as well criticize people who we could just as well criticize people who aren't comfortable feeling like a male and they want to be a female. What are we now going to start questioning whether it's okay for a person to, like, pass themselves as a woman when they're really a man? I mean, look, maybe it's not something that I can relate to, but do I really want to prohibit that? Because isn't that just part of, isn't there some fringe of humanity that wants to present themselves in a different way? I just think that, in my opinion, I think there should be room in the world for the full rainbow of eccentricity, including even the ridiculous, including even the dishonest. Okay, now, obviously, I would feel differently if Buffy St. Marie were actually taking advantage of the Indians, and if she didn't really want to be part of their community, if she's just taking advantage of them. Okay, but now, so what is the actual situation? Okay, is it that Buffy just wears the costume of an Indian and then she goes to Hollywood just to hang out with Hollywood people? Or is it that Buffy really has been adopted into the Indian culture and she's really part of it? Okay. It appears to me as though she really has been adopted into that culture. Okay. So now the question is, how much should we criticize her for, as a younger person, entertaining the fantasy and even perpetrating the dishonesty that she was actually a full-blood Indian, when in fact she didn't really know that. Okay, she may have had doubts. She may have had doubts whether her mother really gave birth to her through her father, or whether maybe her mother had sex with someone else to produce her, maybe giving her some Indian background. She may have had that fantasy, but she didn't know it to be true. Okay, so she passed herself off as definitely a blood Indian when she did not really know that to be true. Okay, so that is dishonest, all right? And she did that on PBS, I think it was the Sesame Street, whatever. She really passed herself off as a pure Indian. And she even made remarks to the children who also wanted to be Indian, saying, hey, but you guys, are you just pretending, or is it for real? And so she was actually playing with the issue of the truth, knowing full well that she did not know herself to be a pure Indian. So that it is a fraud and it is dishonest. But then the question is, should we allow people some leeway maybe to engage in these frauds, because maybe deep down inside they really want it to be true? The same thing with Rachel Dolezal. Rachel Dolezal is not in any way actually black, but she passed herself as black because I think she desperately, and at least in Rachel's case, I think she really wanted to be part of black culture. And likewise, I think Buffy St. I think she really wants to be, and she really feels as though she is part of the Native American culture. So, are we now going to say that people are no longer allowed to, let's say some missionary in Africa, they fall in love with the African people, they fall in love and they want to join the tribe and be sort of like an honorary, like a convert, where you sort of become adopted. I mean, this probably happens. It's probably not very common, but it probably does happen. And so I just think that people should be allowed, just like we allow people to change sex or to at least present themselves as the opposite sex. Personally, I just think if that's really someone's instinct, I don't really want to be the person to like try to put like some kind of, I don't know, to put some kind of regulation or to try to say that's wrong. I think people should be allowed to be eccentric. And I think some aspect of dishonesty and, let's say, almost like compulsive lying or whatever, I think some aspect of that should be allowable, because if it's not actually harming people, and if the person really does want to be part of that culture, I think it's okay. Now, I would think differently, if she was really, like, say, not really part of the native culture, and if she was just using the costume just to cause harm to native people. Now that would be true. But the argument that people are making, that she took these awards, like artistic awards that are reserved for native people. Well, the thing is, she is kind of a native person because she's been adopted as a native person, right? And so I think that, this whole idea of whether she's dishonest about the actual bloodline, whereas, we know it is true that she really has been adopted into that culture. I personally think we ought to just let her do it, But anyway, that's just my opinion. Okay. Maybe because I'm just kind of in favor of eccentricity, and I think the world is a richer place with even people that are just even outrageous to the point of being like absurd or ridiculous. I just think that's part of I would call that the flamboyance of eccentricity, the flamboyance of the human spirit. It's just part of the full rainbow of just strange people, and I kind of support that. But here's the problem. There's this one part of the Fifth Estate where they tell a story of how Buffy St. Marie, okay, her brother was an airline pilot. All right. He was a former Air Force pilot in the United States. He became an airline pilot. And there was an incident where Buffy St. Marie was with some PBS producers just prior, I think, to her appearance on the Sesame Street show. Okay. And they get on the airplane. And it just so happens that her brother is flying the plane. Okay. So they actually meet outside the plane or boarding the plane. And Buffy introduces these producers. And she actually introduces it to this guy's Alan. His name is Alan St. Marie. He's a pilot, airline pilot at the time in the 1970s. And Buffy actually introduces these producers and says, "This is my brother." Okay, so the producers are kind of curious, and they actually make contact later with this brother, and they say, "Hey, you don't appear to be indigenous. Is this kind of like whatever. And the brother says, no, no, my sister's not indigenous. It's like she was raised Caucasian, along with me and my family, So, and then he started writing letters. The brother, Alan St. Marie, started writing letters to different newspapers, basically trying to expose Buffy as a fraud. Okay. And basically saying that she's actually fraudulent and she's not Indian at all. And that what she's doing is dishonest and wrong. Okay. All right. So then what happens is Buffy hires a high dollar Los Angeles law firm and threatens her brother, accusing him of trying to like defame her and maybe injure her career, and basically saying that she'll take any legal action. And inside this package, which has the demand letter from the law firm, is included a handwritten note from Buffy where she threatens to expose her brother as having sexually abused her or molested her when she was young. Okay, so let's look at this little part of the documentary, and let's just see what it does, how it looks. Here, hold on.
Alan, you no doubt remember your continual sexual abuse to me throughout my childhood. According to my memories and diaries, you are nothing but a child molester and a sadist. If you ever try to hurt me again, I will explain the root of your sickness to your employers and your wife, and I will send the police after you.
People didn't talk about child molesting or sexual abuse of children.
Were you molested as a child?
Yes.
Could you tell anybody about it?
People didn't understand. They didn't really know what I was talking about. It just didn't occur to them.
Okay, so that's a pretty serious allegation, and that what that shows to me, I'm not going to get into whether I think it's true or not. I mean, most likely, I think it's probably not true. I think that Buffy was probably very protective of her success and her career. And I think her attitude, probably kind of Machiavellian. And I think basically her attitude was basically that, anybody who messes with me, I'm gonna mess with them. I'll basically, do whatever it takes to, to have them not do it. Because I don't know. There's something about that where I'm not sure. I don't know. There's something seems a little fishy about it. I'll leave some percent chance that maybe it was true. Okay, but the bottom line is at least we know that Buffy St. Marie was willing to go very hardcore. Okay, and be very aggressive with anybody who wanted to mess with her reputation and basically the premise of her career, which is her identity as an Indian person. Okay, so now does that change my attitude? Okay, and I'm going to say that I've thought about this very carefully. And I think the question is not whether Buffy is a good person all around. Okay, that's not the question. Okay, she may, on some level, she may be willing to play hardball when it comes to protecting her career. Okay, so I'm willing to accept that and basically understand that she is kind of Machiavellian and she does protect her career with like full viciousness. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and say that, okay, it may be on the table whether Buffy is actually a good person all around, whether she can be hardcore, whether she can be play hardball or whatever. But on the other hand, I'm sure that other people that are probably equally famous who have, let's say, had musical careers or careers in acting or whatever, I'm sure they would be just as willing to be that vicious with a sibling who was equally trying to like mess with their reputation in public. Okay, because she depends on her public reputation, and basically her brother was just kind of trying to interfere with her career. So I would say that there probably are other famous people who would be just as rough with family members, trying to do something like publicly trying to expose them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that Buffy, let's just say that she's probably not 100% a nice person. Okay, that we can probably go ahead and accept. Okay, but does that mean that her Indian identity is completely bad? I think the way I look at it, I think you can separate basically the way she protected her identity. Okay, the way she protected her public persona, and was willing to play hardball with people, including even possibly being dishonest. Okay, but we can separate that, and we can still ask the question of whether the actual assumption of the Indian identity, okay, whether that was intended to just purely exploit Indian people, or whether she really is a person who wants to belong to the Native American community. Okay, and what I can see is that, yeah, she has taken a lot of awards for herself. She has taken a lot of attention to herself as being almost like leadership, like an artistic leader in the Native American world. I understand that, and so she has really helped herself to a lot of like very high status in the Native world. So I get that. Okay, but I guess where I get hung up is that it is true that she has been adopted by those people and she has sort of assimilated into that culture. Okay, so do we now want to say that you're not allowed to earn accolades and prizes as a Native artist if you're not full blood Native? Now, do we want to put like a genetic requirement onto it, or can we allow people who have been adopted into the culture to also participate in even like say the awards and the high, let's say like high status in the Native culture? And I guess I just think that I don't know. I just think that if we start imposing like a blood requirement, like you have to actually be authentically 100% blood, I just think that something about that to me is insensitive. Okay, it's insensitive to the fact that human beings, whether we like it or not, some of, let's say, more eccentric human beings really do have almost an uncanny instinct to almost want to like transform into another, I don't know, another culture, another sex or whatever. And this kind of like transformative quality that some people have is actually an honest quality. And I think that Buffy St. Marie, she's one of those strange people like Rachel Dolezal. And it is kind of strange. It's very unusual, but people who sort of transform their identity. Let's remember Madonna. When Madonna was hanging out with a Hispanic husband or whatever, when she had a Hispanic husband, Madonna started assuming sort of a Hispanic Spanish sort of appearance. And she's even changed the way she talked. And then when she was married to somebody from the United Kingdom, Madonna started using a UK accent, like what, we're going to think she's from Ireland or from England. But she actually started like assuming sort of like an English persona, including a different accent. And I just think that some people have this kind of weird instinct or kind of, I don't know, it's like an instinct. Some people are very adept at sort of transforming, and it's sort of like an instinct that some people have. And I think that's just a human quality. And so I think that some people who sort of assume like an adopted identity, like Buffy St. Marie, they really do go through sort of a transformation. Okay. And so I think in some ways they sort of believe they're becoming, this other kind of person or whatever. And so I think that we just don't have the vocabulary to really, I don't know how to say it. I think there's something missing in our vocabulary to acknowledge people like that. Okay. And to acknowledge the fact that there is, for some people, the ability to sort of transform. Okay. And so I think the only way Buffy could make sense of that was to actually portray herself as being, full blood Indian. And I just think that, I don't know, like I understand the dishonesty of it. I understand that she was very vicious about protecting her dishonesty, protecting the lie, not to be exposed. She was very protective of her career. I get that. And I get that she was not very nice about it. All right. But I just think that somehow I think we are also failing to understand that there are some eccentric people who have a sort of a transformative quality, who are sort of prone to transformation. And I just think that we ought to all also honor the fact that some people, some very eccentric people, have very transformative qualities. All right. And I think that in a way, I think that Buffy has, in a sense, sort of become an Indian person. All right, even if it is for other people fake. If we don't honor the fact that she, in her mind, has become an Indian person, okay, even if there's some dishonesty there, I think we're going to run into a place where we maybe start to fail to honor or fail to respect that some people do have a very transformative quality, right? And I think when we look at it through that lens, okay, I think I'm sort of not inclined to really fault Madonna, let's say, for taking on that English accent when she was married to an English person. Um, and maybe just to say, hey, it's not something that I can relate to, but some people have a very transformative, what do you call it, a tendency or an instinct or whatever. Maybe it's something that goes along with being histrionic. Um, and maybe instead of just making people feel bad for that and sort of punishing them or sort of downcasting them for having this transformative quality, I think maybe we should just honor the fact that some humans are very transformative, okay, and that maybe we just don't have a lot of vocabulary to understand that, but that people like that, people like, say, let's say a transsexual, they don't like to be reminded. Okay, like a transsexual does not like to be reminded, hey, you're not really a woman. That just kind of breaks the spell, and it also is a way of sort of disrespecting that they have a very transformative quality, right? And they've had sort of, like, say, in their minds, sort of an honest transformation, right? So it's kind of a delicate topic, but I guess I'm just going to say that I think Buffy St. Marie is one of those people who has kind of what I would call sort of an honest, sort of transformational characteristic. Okay. And that in a sense, it would be sort of cruel to just call her nothing but just a liar and a fraud, because I think there is something very honestly transformational about her. And I think she really has been adopted into that native culture. So I think in the end, even though, no, she's not a full-blood Indian, I get that, I understand that, but I just think that she is enough adopted into that culture that I don't think we need to make such a big deal about the fact that she's not really a blood Indian, okay? And in a sense, I think we should just at least remember, that some people just have very transformative, sort of almost like chameleon, shifting, like shape shifting characteristics. And even though we want to portray that often as just being what psychopaths do or what dishonest people do, I think we could also maybe honor that quality as just a human characteristic and just see it as part of the eccentricity of humans. That some very eccentric humans have an incredible shape-shifting, transformative instinct or talent or whatever you want to call it. And that, maybe we ought to just not always criminalize that, or not always try to make it seem like it's a bad thing. And personally, for me, I want to sort of separate the way Buffy treated her brother, okay, and accept that that was not nice, all right, but also to understand that she was protecting her reputation, even though her reputation was grounded on some dishonesty. Okay, it was still her professional public persona, right? And I think that maybe you know I don't know. I guess at least I don't think she was being nice to her brother. Okay. And I think what she did to her brother was pretty disgusting. Right. But I still think that I can still see where she was coming from, that she was trying to protect her public persona and her career, basically. And, I can also separate that and just accept that maybe she's not always a nice person. All right. But to understand that, at least as far as her Indian identity, that is part of actually wanting to belong to the Native American culture. She actually wants to belong, and she has been adopted by that culture. So, I'm just going to say that I'm going to chalk this all up to a person who has, like Rachel Dolezal, she has sort of a transformational, sort of the thing that trans people have, kind of a shape-shifting chameleon, almost like a talent or like an instinct, and that she's just one of those people. She's one of those eccentric people who's had a transformed, sort of a shifted identity, and just accept that that's part of the eccentric. That's part of an eccentric minority of people who are just truly shapeshifters. And I guess I just look at it as just an eccentric quality, sort of a chameleon quality. And I'm not willing to say that every chameleon is bad. That, we can also honor the chameleon, because maybe that's just kind of a rare talent that some people have, that maybe is just something to be fascinated by, and just to be treated as just part of the color of the human rainbow. So I don't know. I guess in the end, I don't have to think. I don't have to. How would you say? in the end, I don't have to come to the conclusion that she's a wonderful person. Okay, that's not necessary. I don't have to come to the conclusion that Buffy St. Marie is just a great, great person. I don't. What I have to ask is whether what she has done has been purely abusive to Indians and that she doesn't give a shit about Indians, or whether in some way she really wants to be an Indian and she has been accepted by the Indians and she has become assimilated into their culture. And the fact is I think she has been accepted. And I don't think we want to go the direction of prohibiting people from having, in rare cases, sort of transformations and, let's say, being adopted into another culture. I think that should be allowed, just as we allow people to transform from male to female or female to male. It's something very eccentric. It's not mainstream. It's not normal. Most of us can't relate to it, but I don't want to look down on maybe some of the fringes of human eccentricity that I think do add color. And I just think that, part of the rainbow colors of the human existence is even the ridiculous and the absurd. And so I think we need things to be sort of off the charts. And I think we need things to be flamboyant and strange, even including things that are even a little bit fantastical and dishonest. And so that, dishonesty should only be a problem. And even in the law, dishonesty doesn't become a problem unless you're specifically taking advantage of somebody, you know. And I think in this case, I don't think she's taking advantage of Indians. I think in the end, overall, I think she's raising up the cause of the Native American people. Okay. So, you can argue that maybe she's taken some artistic awards away from some full blood Indians, but here's the thing. In the case of Buffy St. Marie, what she's doing is not just a costume. It's not just a costume. She has actually assumed the identity, and she actually has been adopted by the culture. Okay. So it's not just a costume. And I think for that reason, I think we ought to just let her be an Indian if she believes she's an Indian. So I know it's complicated. I know she has been dishonest. I know her brother probably was not a sexual abuser, I would assume. But, even given the fact that Buffy has not been very nice, okay, I still think that she has become an Indian. And I think, I don't think it's been done to hurt the Indian cause. So, it's a tough one, but I'm going to go ahead and say that I think she's okay. I'm not saying she's 100% good. I'm just saying that her adoption into the Native culture, I think is okay. And I guess I support that. I don't support how she treated her brother. I think she could have been more diplomatic, but I do support her transition to be, let's say, in her mind, an Indian, and to present herself as an Indian. So that's, it's a tough one. And I know I'll disappoint a lot of people, but I appreciate your patience, and thanks for watching.